I really want you guys to hear what I have to say and hopefully really take it to heart, because it will build a really new frame for you, feel much more confident about themselves. And the third reason is because I want you to take this information once it really makes its way into your brain and pass it on to everyone you meet. Because there are some pretty screwed up things in our society and the way that things have been, what's the word for it? In the ways that things have stylized themselves over the last 8,000, 9,000 years, particularly the last, let's say, 3,000 years, that have been particularly negative. And even now, we haven't managed to do very much to fix that. So please feel free to take notes. Please feel free to record anything, discuss anything with anyone, but do me a favor and try to remember where you heard it.
Guys?
Go ahead. Just before, we're just setting up the last of the gear. Regarding the recording, this is not being recorded for production or publication. I'm recording it mostly because this is a fairly stream of consciousness output that I've been refining over some time. Think of it as stand-up. Being unaccustomed to public speaking as I am, at least non-microphone public speaking, please let me know if you can't hear me very well. I'm also going to open this up fairly regularly to question and answers. If there's something that comes up in anyone's mind that you really need to get my attention for, put your hand up. I understand attention deficit disorder, and I'll try and do my best to give you the chance to get it out before it disappears, whoosh. And you, sir, Mr. Nike.
What happened to your horns?
My what?
Devil horns. Where are they?
I'm sorry? My
Devil horns.
The devil.
devil.
The horns.
The horns.
Oh yeah, my devil horns. I'm having a good day. On good days.
Good days you only get tail?
Give the man a prize. The answer to your question, in fact, was one that I strategized about when I spoke in the summertime at Cliffs. I knew that if I went there and I told the things that I wanted to say, odds would be that several hundred wannabe players and newbies would run out and buy devil's horns and put them on their heads and walk around like retards, making the whole game that much less effective and also making them look like idiots. I'm a big fan of helping people to find things that work for them. One of the things I try and let everyone understand is that when you're talking to women and they say, just be yourself, what they really mean is figure out who the fuck you are. Make yourself into the best you can be, and don't pretend to be someone else. And when they say just be yourself, all they mean is don't be someone else. Now the truth is, you yourself, hey, you may not be that sexy, that attractive, that interesting, but that's up to you to fix. Okay? And there's ways to go about it. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a moment and give you guys some motherhood statements that all sort of follow from the same theme. First of all, the most important thing that I have going for me when I walk out on the street, when I meet new people, when I walk up to girls or I want to start a conversation, is I really love me. I do a lot of really nice things for a lot of people. I do them because doing nice things for people makes me feel good about myself. You know, I told this to a bunch of people in Montreal. One of the guys looked at me and said, yeah, but what do you get out of it? So I said, what percentage of your monthly salary would you be prepared to dedicate to something that would make you feel good about yourself all the time? And he thought about it, and he said, I don't make that much right now. I said, permanent lifetime, what percentage of your salary is it worth? He said, well, I guess quite a bit. I said, brother, here's the good news. You can do it today. You can do it without any money at all. It doesn't cost you anything. Just spend your time figuring out what you do and how you can help people and do nice things for them. Because when you do nice things for other people who are worthwhile, you feel great about yourself. Not only that, they feel really good about you. And it's a kind of instant karma. Okay? By which I'm saying, if I walk down the street, a wino walks up to me or a crackhead, asks me for money, I look at them and I realize this is a person who can't be helped. They don't want to be helped. If I took them by the hand and took them to a place where they could get help, they would escape from that help. And so I realized this is a person who's decided not to participate. And I realized that if I were to give money that I had worked for, money that I had generated to this person, all day long afterwards I'd feel dirty. Because I'd just taken something of value, something that had become important because I had put effort into it, and made it valueless. So instead, when I'm approached by people like that, I tell them I can't help them. And I don't feel badly about myself, and I don't feel particularly great about myself, except that it doesn't have a net negative effect on my day. Also, it doesn't have a net negative effect on my pocketbook. But when I see a person, whomever it is, and I'm walking down the street minding my own business, and I see a person who looks like they could use some help, either their car is stalled, or they're having some trouble moving something, or they're trying to open a door and their hands are full, or whatever, no matter how small it is, I try and go over and see whether or not they'd like my help. It's very important I don't go over to them and start by helping them, because this just pisses people off. Okay? The harder you try and help people who haven't asked for your help, the more resentment, the more frustration you'll generate in them, and you'll feel it. So you walk up to them and you say, hey, could you use a hand? Is there something I could do to help? Sometimes they'll be very white bread, waspy types, and they'll say, no, I've got it, even if they don't. So you can say, okay, if you change your mind, I've got a free hand, I've got a couple of minutes, I have some experience with this, whatever. I know how to change a flat. Someone did this for me last week, I feel like paying it back. Whatever. And the person says, no, I got it. You say, cool. You walk on, you feel good about yourself because you tried. But if they say yes, they could use your help, then you do your very best. You try and make their lives better. Because in making their life better, you do a whole bunch of things that all resonate down around the world and make your life better. And I can promise you this. Okay? And when you try this, you walk out of here today. Tonight probably going to be pretty late, but you walk out of here and tomorrow you try this. Your day will go better and you'll feel better about yourself, and other people will feel better about being with you. Okay? So you start by finding someone who needs your help. They're all over the place. You ask them if you can help, and then if they let you, you help them. And when you do it without asking anything of them, without doing anything except being social. You find out about them, you let them know that they don't owe you anything. Just say, hey, someday someone's going to need this help. Think about me when you do it. And then you walk away. And the thing is, you walk away and you feel really good about yourself. And I'll tell you something about women. Women instinctively look for people who radiate self-confidence. See, self-confidence isn't something you can fake. You can fake it in the sense of being hubristic, artificially arrogant. But real confidence, the kind of confidence that you broadcast without meaning to, the kind of confidence that says, yeah, I know I'm here. I don't mind being here. I'm comfortable. You can't fake. And women love it. Not only that, other men love it. When you do this, people will choose to be around you, and they'll like being around you, and you will suddenly become popular. And it's really easy. It takes 3% of your day at the very most. And what it adds to your life is unbelievably valuable. And we come back to something I wanted to say as another motherhood statement that's very important. A lot of you guys are here because you want to learn how to be more successful with women. You want to learn how to pick people up. You want to know how to get past their fears, their guilt, their anxieties. You want to be able to break down defenses that you know they have set up to keep you out. And I'll tell you something. The most powerful thing you can use to get past all those defenses is be someone they want to see. Be someone they want to be around. by actually being happy. I'll tell you something. Being happy is the most addictive thing in the world. When you're happy, everyone wants to be around you. When you're happy, and you know it, when you're happy, when you're happy, and you're confident and comfortable with yourself, it radiates. Other people feel good just from vibing you, from being around you. You become very compelling. People will hang around because if they don't have anything better to do, they know, wow, hang around with Johnny's always fun. Johnny always makes me feel good about myself. Some people are going to be the sort of people who will attach themselves to you, and you'll end up doing a lot of things for them. And sometimes you'll realize that, gee, I'm putting a lot of investment into this person without they're actually improving themselves very much. And sometimes, for their own sake, you have to look at them and say, it's time for you to do something back. Okay? Earn this. Earn it. Earn this. Because in so doing, you become truly worthy. And worthiness is a very central theme that you're going to hear from me a lot. Okay? When you're worthy, when you are in fact worthwhile, other people can tell. And you can have that justified confidence of knowing that you deserve all the good things that you want. Now you can think this is all airy-fairy, metaphysical, secret style stuff. And I'm not trying to discount the secret stuff. I'm saying that you may think this is all, well, okay, maybe whatever. But I'll tell you, if you try it tomorrow, I guarantee you by the end of the day you'll believe me. This is not one of these things where you need to take a long time and have a lot of faith. This requires no faith at all. Do it as a bet. Do it on a dare. Go out and help people. And you know what? You'll feel really good about yourself. As long as the people that you help, you deem worthy. If you think the person is worthwhile, then when you help them, you feel great about yourself. If you know the person isn't worthwhile and you help them, you'll feel badly about yourself. You have thrown away time, thrown away energy and money. These are treasures. Now I'll tell you something about that that's very significant to me. The most important thing I know of, the most valuable asset I've ever heard of in my entire life, is something that only I control. Now I'm going to tell you guys about this because you're here and this is a good time for you to know. I happen to have control of what, as far as I'm concerned, is the most valuable thing ever to exist. Only I control it. Only I can decide what to do with it. And you know what? If I decide to do nothing with it, it disappears and I never get it back. Okay? And it's my time. Now, every one of you has your own time too, and I appreciate that you're giving it to me by paying attention to me when I'm talking. But let me tell you, you guys need to consider this for yourselves. Your own time is the most important thing in the world. It's non-renewing. There's nothing you can do about getting more of it. It's what you got. You can do things to make it last longer. You can get married to the wrong person. Boy, time goes by slow. But the truth of the matter is the time that you're going to want is the time that goes by really quickly because you're enjoying it. Okay? And if I were to find out tomorrow that I had a tumor and I was going to be dead in a week, I'd spend the rest of the week trying to crank out the last of the stuff I have to share with you guys, and I'd die happy. I consider myself as winning the game because my chips are really high. Okay? I've been playing really well for a long time. I have basically no enemies. I have a few rivals. I've done nothing to generate. They just have problems with me. I'm respectful and sweet and appreciative of every person who shows me that they're worthwhile. People love to do things for me because I do something I call putting rabbits into hats. See, everyone knows this magic trick where you pull a rabbit out of the hat. Problem is, there has to be a rabbit in the hat. So if we come back to what I was saying a little earlier about doing nice things for people, you can actually do nice things for people which kind of throw a little token into the favor bank. The favor bank doesn't have any tally. Anyone who looks at you and says, yeah, you owe me one, those are people you want to stay away from. A real favor bank works like this. If you have an account, it's because you deserve one. And you can get really massively overdrawn as long as it's clear you intend on paying it back. And the best thing you can do to make sure that your credit line all runs really well is that when you got the opportunity, put more favors in. Because when the water level rises, all the ships in the marina go up at once. Right? So, for the most part, I have nothing to worry about from other people's success. When I talk to you about this stuff, and believe me, I'm going to talk about a bunch of things that are a lot more close to home for a lot of you in terms of things that relate to women and how women are going to see you and like you. Okay? This stuff, like I said, is motherhood statements. But when I tell you about this stuff and the other stuff I'm going to talk to you about, I want you to propagate this to as many people as you can. I want this to resonate. I don't care if people think about it. I don't care whether or not you consider yourselves disciples. It has nothing to do with anything. I just want you guys to go out there and try it, because you'll see that it pays off in immediate sense. And other people will start coming to you and going, how come you live so well? You know, what is it about you that makes you so special? Right. Now, before I go to the next sort of segment, which has to do specifically with what I refer to as seductive reasoning. Is there anyone who's got any questions? Wow, this is a good group. Okay then. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. For those of you who don't know anything about me, I'll tell you a couple of things. Professionally, I'm a management consultant, which means that I fly around to different places. And I go and I talk to companies that are in various states of success or failure. And I fly in as a management consultant at 10,000 feet above what they're doing, and I look down and I say, aha, I can see that you're way too close to this. You're way too far into the forest to recognize that there are trees around you. So I'm going to give you some commentary, and it might sound painful, and it might seem radical, and it may require firing a lot of people. But it's the stuff that you've hired me to do, and that's what I do. In my time, I've actually found that I end up doing more relationship counseling for the executives of the companies that I go to than traditional management consulting, because usually it takes me about 45 minutes to completely understand where a company is at this point in my career, recognize where they're doing things that are wrong because I've seen them before, and tell them what to do. After that, you see, I've got all this time for which I'm billing them. I kind of feel I should get to know them a little bit. And people like to find out more about me. You see, well, the thing is, my work pays very well. I don't have to do very many days a month. But what it usually means is I get to travel a lot, and I extend out my trips by, if I have to be there for a Thursday morning meeting, I'll book my flight to come back on Monday so that the cost of the ticket's much lower, and I'll use the Delta to accommodate myself in a nice hotel for a few days. Maybe fly one of my lady friends out. Or, you know, and this happens to be a lot of fun. But at the same time, it's given me a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of people in a lot of different places and learn a lot of things. One of the things I learned about myself a long time ago is that I don't like to sleep alone. And so when I travel, I like to go out and I like to meet new people. I usually like to meet some new interesting guys, but that's very hard. I like to find some new and intriguing women. That's usually not that tricky. It depends on what you yourself consider significant and interesting about a person. So I'll go out and I'll find someone new and I'll integrate them into my life. If they're really worthwhile, I'll introduce them to my friends back home. And my circle of friends gets bigger and bigger and filled with beautiful and cool people that I like to travel with and like to come with me on different trips and do whichever. One of the things I've found over the years is I tend to get along very well with people who are extremely sexually liberated. That's a big word too, because I'm going to come back to it in a few minutes. Extremely sexually liberated means they don't live under the oppressive thumb of society's rules for what makes a woman correct or incorrect in her way of living. Sometimes this means I'm dating a lot of girls who are either extremely powerful, doctors, lawyers, judges, or entertainment professionals so that they can be idiosyncratic and eccentric and get away with it. Actresses, models, porn stars. Sometimes they're in the sex services business because they've recognized that they've got a marketable asset. He said, marketable. and they understand that they should have this relationship. And I have great relationships, many times extremely erotic and playful relationships with these girls, all on a non-commercial basis. And I consider that to be a pretty good way to live, because they're usually a lot of fun. And they know what they're doing. But this brings me to the aspect we were talking about before, sexual liberation. And before we start on this route, I'm going to tell you some more motherhood stuff that you really need to know. Human beings are a really interesting lot. We come in two varieties generally, males and females. For the purpose of argument, I'm not going to discuss homosexual behavior, because while I'm doing some research and working on some of that, not hands-on research, of course, while I'm trying to explore some aspects of that, I'm going to only touch upon that very briefly a little bit later. But for the purposes of what we all want to know, as far as I can tell, we want to know about the natures of women and men. And in particular, we want to know why it is that we all have such a hard time with them. So I'm going to start by telling you an interesting little metaphor that I've been using for some time with men I meet who have open hostility towards women. A lot of you guys, some of you guys may even be that way. But I'll tell you my take on this. You see, I like to go fishing. Every once in a while, I'll go out to a lake where I know the water is absolutely beautiful. You can see right down to the bottom. The lake is teeming with gorgeous fish. And I'll go out there with my rod and reel, and I'll fish for a few hours and pull in all sorts of really great fish. And then there are some people I know who go out to that same place, and they'll go out and they'll drop a fortune. They'll buy a Range Rover with a tow, and they'll drag some big boat. They'll have bought beautiful gear, hip waders and whatever they could think of. And they'll go out on the lake, same place I am, 30 feet away from me. And I'll watch them put their hooks on the line. I'll watch them toss the line into the water. And you can see the fish swim right up to their line and then swim away.
Oh.
Sometimes you'll see them fish swim up to the line and nibble, and they'll sit there all excited because they can see the fish too. They'll sit there and nibble until there's no bait left and the fish will swim away. Sometimes the fish will come by and grab the line. You'll see the guys, the fish starts to swim away and they're all excited about it, and the fish will break the line. You'll see them setting it up again exactly the same way, having exactly the same result again and again. And then you see them putting it on. Sometimes they'll get to a point where you see the fish come right up to the top and fall off the line. And you go up to these guys and say, wow, lousy day, huh? And they go, oh, those stupid, evil fish. They're so manipulative. They're out to get us. They hate us. But of course, they're fish, and they're doing what's in their nature, and they don't hate us. And in fact, the truth of the matter is, I've been pulling great fish out all day. And so I say to the guys, hey guys, you've got the right gear, you've got the right equipment. The problem is you. You're not pulling fish out of this lake. The fish are here. What you're doing isn't working. So let's stop looking at the fish like they're evil fish. They aren't. They're not manipulative. They're not nasty. There's no justification to hate them. So take a step back and say, gee, you know what? Why don't I see whether or not what I'm doing is the reason I'm not succeeding? So I tell this to guys, and they sometimes get it, because it's a pretty good reframe. I think someone's at the door. It's a pretty good reframe. Because a lot of guys actually believe that women don't ever want to hook up with guys, and that when these guys do all the things that they believe girls are going to want them to do, and the girls make it look like this is what they want them to do, but somehow, at the end of the day, the girls go home with someone else. Or the girls say, wow, I really appreciate all you've done. I appreciate all the worms you've been feeding me all day. But let's just be friends. The truth of the matter is, the reason it's not working is because they aren't actually doing what the fish wants. So now we roll back. Another important motherhood statement. Coming back to where we discover that human males and human females have some differences. One of the things that is pretty interesting is that if you roll the clock back, Sherman, set the dial on the Wayback Machine. to about 11,000 years ago, before the last significant ice age. This is an important time for all of us, I know. People were fairly shamanistic if they had any religion at all. They figured, oh, the sun came up. Something must have dragged the sun from its slumber. It rained. Something must be pissed off. There's lightning. Something must be pissed off. Or whichever. Humans gathered in packs, kind of like wolves or lions. And they wandered around, and there were pack leaders, alpha males and alpha females, who do their thing. And there were also lots of run-of-the-mill, average working Joe types who do their thing. And once in a while it would be mating season. In fact, it'd be mating season once a month for humans because we're really cool that way. And the females would hook up with the males that were of interest. And babies would get generated. But the thing is, when you don't have months and weeks and days, because time doesn't matter that much to you, you don't have cycles of growth of things because you're hunters and gatherers and you just go around and find stuff. The idea of cause and effect between having sex and generating a baby is actually pretty difficult to come to terms with. So then, something really cool happened. Not just cool, cold. It was this ice age. Everyone had to either move out of their cooler neighborhoods or find themselves nice comfortable caves and gather as much as they could and manage to live through the very bad time. But when they came back out of their caves, something new was in evidence, and that was the plants that existed were all perennials. You guys familiar with perennials? It means they survive from year after year after year after year through the changes in the cycle, whether the ground freezes, because everything they need are in their seeds, and providing the soil is good, new plants will grow in the same place. Something new happened. Suddenly, we had this new concept. If I farm, if I go out and I take these seeds and I put them in the same place, or I expand that area, I get more and more food. If I have other people who come out and help me, eventually we've got tremendous number of crops without having to do nearly as much running around as trying to find whatever plant life we can on whatever trees. We don't have to go out and hunt for things. It gets really easy. We also discovered ranching. Because if you take care of your animals and grow them, you end up with plenty. This is very, very, very efficient. And so the hunter paradigm kind of fell to the side in favor of this farmer paradigm. And with the farmer paradigm came something else, the idea of property. You see, when you're tribal nomads, you've got territory maybe, but property doesn't really mean anything. But once you start working a field and you start generating product, it's yours. Well, an interesting thing happens when you start doing that. You start looking at women and you go, you know what? If I take these seeds and I put them into this fertile soil, I get product. If I put seeds into this woman who is fertile soil, I get product. Not only that, I get product that I can use to help me till the field next year. And so this wonderful thing, the idea of being able to generate children that were your own, that would respond to your instructions, very important thing. Suddenly it was very important to treat women as property. Kind of a lousy deal for women, really, except at least it came along with a guarantee of security. And women, as we all know, fundamentally crave security. This is very important and not an unfair comment to make. Men like security too, but we don't crave it in the same way. What men crave, and is the overrider of things we tend to do, is approval. When you recognize that human beings crave security and approval, you'll realize the reason why things become limiting for them. If a man realizes he's going to do something that will get him disapproval, he won't do it. Not unless he's absolutely sure he can get away with it. So now, coming back, we have this idea of women as property. And the women as property were kind of hard to keep as property because either you needed to geld some poor sucker and make him responsible for guarding your harem. And by the way, this was done for thousands and thousands of years. And by the way, in case you're wondering where the idea came from, anyone who's raised chickens or cattle or whatever will discover that if you have too many males, they'll fight it out, sometimes to the death. So you want to turn your chickens, your roosters, into capons. You want to turn your bulls into steer, except for the ones you're going to be using for breeding, because otherwise you've got problems. Okay? So humans started to think, well, maybe the thing to do is treat people the way we always treat our livestock. I'm not going to cut off my own balls, but there's got to be someone out there who I don't care about. The problem there is the urges of women didn't change between when women were just having sex because it made sense to them when there were no words to describe what was going along, to when they had this cultural paradigm that said they belonged to someone. And people don't really like that sort of sense of belonging. They like voluntary sense of belonging. They don't like to feel their own. And so women would sneak out. So this didn't work terribly well. This would be a problem because men believe their children are their own. Have any of you read that 30% of children whose DNA was tested in the past couple of years in the United States to see if their father was actually their father, turned out 30% their daddy weren't their daddy and the daddy didn't know.
That's probably a biased sample.
Oh, it's no, for certain. It's
not testing 100% of the population.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's only testing the ones where the husband suspected the child was. The stats probably closer to 11 to 12% in North America, according to most of the institutes that I've been doing research on. But I think that's probably low anyway. I think that stat is based on spurious data, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. So, if your daddy ain't your daddy and your daddy don't know, he might, if he finds out about it, not want to invest a lot of energy in you. But then again, he may say, well, it doesn't matter. If I'd come across this woman and she just had a baby and I loved her and she was cool and really great, I'd treat the baby as my child, in which case it doesn't matter. But it depends on the mindset of the fellow. There are many men for whom it is extraordinarily important that their child be their own child. And because of this, we have certain extremely socially broken things that have come to us over thousands and thousands of years. For example, the value of virginity. Virginity is very, very important. When you're getting married to a woman and you want to know that the child she's about to become pregnant with is going to be yours, and that she didn't show up at your door already pregnant with someone else's child, and that's why she's marrying you. You laugh. Well, this is more common than you'd think. So, come back. We have this situation. 10,000 years ago, we've got this society in which people are trying to defend their women from interlopers because they want to keep them for themselves. It's not working terribly well. It's time to come up with something better. So as a few thousand years go by, someone says, I know, we have to terrify them into behaving themselves, whether or not we've got someone to police this. And what's the most terrifying thing anyone's ever come up with? God. We're going to give you some divine punishment. We're going to even come up with a bunch of rules. You're going to like them. They're interesting. They say things like, don't steal other people's property. Don't kill them. Okay. Don't want your neighbor's wife. She's his property. And then to women, don't have sex with anyone you're not married to. Wow. The other ones are things like keep these holy and pay attention to this and don't have any other gods. But the important ones are the ones about governing property. This is very important. These rules have propagated for about 6,000 years or so. They've become part of a lot of different cultures. And a lot of people follow these rules. And they're not bad rules. Except they sure do supplicate women into some pretty bad situations that are not obvious to men. But it's not your fault, guys. None of you are responsible for that, and not just that. Even after today, when some of these things I'm going to tell you are going to resonate in you, because there's some things I'm going to tell you you're going to really like. It won't even free the women, because they're holding themselves down, and not in a fun way. And so I'm going to give you today some things you're going to take with you, and when you talk to women, and when you describe these things to women, you're going to help them liberate themselves. You're going to help them emancipate themselves from a tyranny that they don't even realize they're holding themselves under. And once they do, they're going to feel much, much better about themselves. They're going to like themselves, and things are going to make sense to them. And they're going to really appreciate that you brought it to them. Because it means you understand it. And you're not going to look down at them. And you're not going to disapprove of them. And you're not going to remove from them their security by damaging their reputation, by damaging their name. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. Now I'd like to take a second, I'm not sure how much tape we've gone through, and find if anyone needs to have a bio break. That's a bathroom. Grab themselves a drink. I'm going to grab myself a drink. I think I've got one over here. You guys are all so well behaved. Now, for those of you who didn't get chairs the last time, I recommend finding the smallest and least alpha person you can and tossing them. Of course, I'm not serious about that at all. I will make an interesting comment, though. I've known an awful lot of people who were totally comfortable and confident in themselves, who were about 5'4", and therefore, under normal circumstances, may well have suffered from what we call short man syndrome, which is where they feel they've been hard done by life, and they've become mean and hostile and unpleasant, who are, in fact, totally comfortable with themselves, extremely good at the things they do, and you forget completely that they're not 6 foot tall after you've spoken to them for half an hour. And these guys all do fantastically well in life in general and with women. Being alpha seems to be a genetic predilection. It's not a style. And in a moment I'm going to tell you guys something funny that I'm working on, that this part I'd appreciate if you'd keep to yourselves. This next little bit I'm planning on publishing, and maybe getting myself a doctorate in anthropology or sociology or wherever the hell they decide to put it. But around the same time as the great ice age melted and people started to become farmers and started to have property and started treating women as property, as we were discussing before, and started becoming ranchers and started to realize that you had to emasculate some number of the males in order to keep them from fighting all the time. Something else was happening that wasn't nearly as obvious. And that was that the hunters were becoming de-emphasized. They stopped having such an important part of a role in society because, you see, farming scales very well. 5 guys working on the same farm can grow enough food for 50. 10 guys can grow enough food for a few hundred. But hunting doesn't work like that. One guy goes out and kills a bison, feeds 30 people. This is pre-refrigeration, guys, so we're talking about using it up when you kill it. Okay? But 2 guys go out and kill 2 bison, that doesn't really help. 10 guys go out and kill 10 bison, it's definitely not going to be helpful. The communities just aren't that big. And it's not reasonable to expect communities to get that big because people aren't going to be killing bison with that frequency, or the bison will simply leave. So hunters became deprioritized. Now there's a theory about what happened to these hunters. They didn't die out. There were always reasons for them to exist. They took on roles as military, police sometimes. People who were good at scanning the horizon for the next thing that was of interest to them, the next thing that seemed urgent to them, that they could hide. They got it. Oh look, there's a squirrel. I'm sorry. That's just my ADD kicking in. And that's the result of the hunter gene that I was born with, and I bet a lot of you guys were born with. They've always made it so difficult for you to concentrate on things that to you seemed very trivial, like walking out each day and brushing the aphids off the plants, so at the end of the season you'd have a lot of foliage In your mind, I imagine a lot of you, probably the majority of you, despite the fact that ADD is not a particularly well-traveled gene compared. These people, you people, me certainly, we chase down things that are interesting to us. And one of the things that we need, that we crave, that we have no choice but to go after, even though it costs us approval, is variety. And that includes women. In fact, I've always said in my family, we pluralize spouse as spice. And I need a lot of spice in my life. Now, I believe, and this is something I'm asking you guys not to propagate, I believe that ADD as a gene, and the reason it's becoming so prevalent and popular, has been spread by players, has been spread by the guys who are constantly out there looking to spread the seed. And they were looking around for that girl who was looking for them. And instinctively, or because they had no choice but to find them, they'd find the girl who was out there looking for them. And that girl wasn't looking for them by name or by in person. See, there's an interesting thing about women. Every woman who is of sexual age, childbearing age, releases an egg or several eggs about halfway through their cycle. In so doing, they become ready to receive sperm from sperm donors like you. Certainly sperm donors like me, except that I had mine all cut off a long time ago. But in essence, every woman has this moment each month where her body releases eggs, and this is called estrus. And in normal mammals, any traditional mammal, we would call it going into heat or rutting. And all the males that come around in the nearby area would sense it, and they'd come a-running. You ever seen a cat that was in heat, make it out of the house, come back in a day or two later looking pretty rough, done by a female cat, and she'll give birth to 12 kittens that look nothing alike? This is because maybe 25 lucky tomcats had their opportunity to try and fertilize her eggs. Interesting thing about sperm, they come in different varieties. There are baby-making sperm and hunter-killer sperm that go looking for baby-making sperm from any other sperm donor and kill them. And defensive sperm that go around looking for hunter-killer sperm and kill them. And this happens so that the strongest will survive evolutionarily inside a petri dish, or more reasonably the uterus of some female of mammal persuasion. And this happens with humans too. People don't like to talk about this a lot. People have a lot of trouble excluding that humans are created divinely and are unique amongst animals. In truth, humans may be unique amongst animals in a couple of ways. One of the ways is that human females can have sex whenever they wish, whenever they're turned on enough. And this doesn't seem to be the case with the overwhelming majority of mammals. They only have sex when the females are in estrus. In other words, when the females are eligible to become pregnant. We're going to discuss the reasoning behind why females don't have, or have this ability in a little while, because it's an interesting surprise. But just for the moment, we know that men go out, they find these girls whose standards for what they're looking for have changed. See, neat thing about women. Every man, if you think about it, has a list of attributes he wants in a long-term relationship. And he has a list of attributes he'd like in a one-night stand. And the lists are pretty much completely different. What a man wants in a long-term relationship is usually very, very little in common with what he wants in one night. Usually for women, 23 days a month, their lists are pretty much identical. What a woman wants for a one-night stand is pretty much exactly the same thing a woman wants in a long-term relationship. 5 or 6 days a month, just before she releases her eggs and just after. What she wants in a mate may be entirely different. may just be someone who communicates to her through whatever means that he's the man. He's going to do it. He's ready to do it. And so some of you know that if you go out and you find yourself amongst a room full of people, some number of them are women, and if you look over and you smile at the women, and they don't turn away, but they stare at you for a second, they look away. You keep staring, and they stare back. And you go over and you approach them, you start talking to them. You know what's going on in their head? Oh, please, don't let him fuck this up. If you can just not say something stupid for 15 minutes, I'm going home with him. Girls, any thoughts? That's right. This is what's happening in their minds. They don't realize it most of the time. Women don't even realize when they're ovulating. I was saying online the other day, there's a word for people who rely upon the rhythm method, which is the system of knowing your cycle in theory and having sex only when you're not reasonably likely to have dropped an egg. We call people who rely on this as their only form of birth control parents. Because it's not that reliable. And more importantly, people who rely on that as their only form of birth control tend, every once in a while, to get too horny and they have sex at the wrong times. Only have to do that once in a while, and you have children. Now, so we have these women who go out and they're looking for guys, and so I want to give you guys a model. In fact, I'd like to give you guys a fashion model. Here's the story. I'll give you this from my own life experience, okay? I'm calling my autobiography, which I'm massively fictionalizing so no one has me killed, I'm calling it The Man Who Didn't Count. This is not because I have no idea how many lovers I've had. That's true, but that's not the point to the name. It's kind of a double entendre. The point to the name is that for an awful lot of married women and women in long-term relationships and single women, I didn't count. Have you had sex with anyone behind your husband's back? No. What about Johnny? Oh, he didn't count. Every man in this room, if you have any female friends, you've actually talked with them about their sexual experiences, someday they'll say, I haven't had sex in 6 months. Just look at them straight in the face and say, wait a second, what about that guy that night you took home from that place? You don't have to be any more specific than that. That guy that night. I'm like, oh, he didn't count. Is there anyone here who's had that sort of conversation with any of their girlfriends?
I think it works the other way for males too, actually.
It probably does, but for guilt relief reasons in both cases. It's entirely guilt relief. But absolutely. There are a lot of things that didn't count, but usually for women, the guilt they're trying to relieve is their own guilt to themselves or to the society at large that makes them feel badly about themselves. Whereas for men, it's releasing themselves from having to feel guilty for going to bed with someone they're embarrassed for having gone to bed with because she didn't make the grade. Difference between, why are fat girls like mopeds? Lots of fun to ride as long as none of your buddies catch you on one. It's a terrible joke, but we all get a laugh, or almost all of us do, because of course it's got a certain mythic resonance to it that we can really relate to. So now we follow this back for a moment. Okay? I love looking over at the giggles from the girls, from the giggle of girls. I'll take your word for it. Oh yes, well, you would know, wouldn't you? Now that's funny. Some things are better left unsaid. Would you guys like a few examples? Okay, so anyone want to prompt me? I'm having one of those special ADD moments where anyone want to tell me what I was talking about? 30 seconds.
Women hide their ovulation.
Oh yes, that's true. Thank you. Women hide their ovulation. Like I said, I was going to tell you in a little while why this happens. But first I was going to tell you a case history of my own. Right? I've been to bed with girls of a lot of different varieties, and sometimes I'll find out while I'm flirting with them or I'm chatting with them, or I tell them some of this thing I'm about to tell you about. See, this is the thing my father used to tell me. First you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and you tell them you told them. This way they remember. So I'm going to tell you in a moment what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you. Ultimately, I'll tell you again. But I talk to women about the reason that they shouldn't feel guilty or anxious or badly about any of the things that they do or that they've done. Because they're doing things that are completely justified and right and moral and appropriate, unless they've made significant promises to people whom they care about, who would be hurt by their actions. And in these cases, I say they should probably go back to first principles and work through this before they end up hurting them. Because otherwise, there'll be no escape. Now, I've been to bed with girls who've said, Johnny, talking to you is wonderful. You're like my best friend. You're like a girl. And I always say I'm just like a girl, just with a ridiculously large clit. I say, hey, I'm just one of the girls, you know. You don't have to worry about it. We'll hang out. We'll be friends. You never have to worry about my trying to become your boyfriend, because believe me, that's the last thing I would ever want to be. Not because I don't find you attractive, not because I'm not going to fuck you, but because I have no interest in taking on that role, and even less in taking on that title. So, these girls would go to bed with me. Not once, not twice, but a couple times a week. Behind their husband's back, usually. Sometimes I'd know about it, sometimes not so much. And they'd say, no, it's okay. Johnny doesn't count. Because Johnny's no risk. Johnny's not looking to take me away. In fact, every time we sit down and talk, we're talking about problems I'm having with my husband. Not only that, he's giving me really good insights, so I understand better what's going wrong. And this is true. I've saved an awful lot of relationships, believe me. I say this with a grain of irony. I've saved an awful lot of relationships and marriages over the years, an awful lot of them. And every once in a while, I've saved a woman who was in a relationship that couldn't be saved, and I've helped her find her feet and walk out the door. Because sometimes that is the right route. So now we come back. We find these women for whom some men don't count. These 35-year-olds, who if they were dating a dozen 35-year-olds, would feel terribly about themselves. They're so inappropriate. But if they're dating 22-year-olds, it doesn't count. They don't care if they're labeled as cougars, as long as they're not called sluts. See, cougar's okay, because the boys they're screwing aren't appropriate as partners, so they're just like a dildo. And in a lot of cases, I'm sure that's true. And in a lot of cases, I'm sure it's not that good. But the point is, the girls don't have to worry about it, they don't have to take it seriously, because these are not people who would be eligible. They aren't qualified to be lovers in a serious way or partners, so they don't count. And there are all sorts of guys who won't count. And what I'm hoping to do for you all, for every guy in this place, is I'm hoping to enable you to be one of those men who doesn't count. Or better still, someone who can help a girl to liberate herself from even having to think about counting people. And so now I'll get on to that. How are we doing for tape?
5 more minutes.
All right, well then I'm going to take a moment for, in fact, let's kill this tape and move to the next one. Because once I get going, guys, ooh.